we want to keep this state relatively clean. We can't ignore facts. It is the obligation of the public, each and every one of you, to find out the facts, insist on finding out the facts, and not assume that everybody's honest, because everybody isn't honest anywhere. That's just not human nature. And if we assume everybody's honest, that's how someone like Petter's going to get away with what he did. A lot of people assume he's honest. He must be nice. He's going to the high society events and giving money to charity and all that. Well, you know, see a lot of those people back in New York, but people see through it. Some people do, some people don't. So Bernie Madoff did. You know, if we assume everybody's nice and everybody's honest, that's the first way we're going to get scammed by someone like Petters, and the first way we're going to lose our government.
By the way, Petters wasn't from Minnesota either, was he?
Yeah. I don't think this is a Minnesota problem. I'm talking to Andrew about this. This happens all over the U.S. I think the difference here, though, is there's probably more protection for sweeping it under the carpet. You know, as you talked about earlier in Illinois, you know, it would be no big deal. It happens all the time. And I think up here, people are just a little bit more defensive about it. But it happens all over the country. You shouldn't be defensive about it. These people, I don't even think it's really a personal situation. There's a lot of people that would have done exactly what Doug Kelley did. With, you know, make $25 or $30 million. He's probably going to get $25 to $30 million in referrals. So you're talking $50, $60 million payday with no recourse. Well, I bet you that if we took a sample in this room, probably the majority of you people would take that deal. And so I don't think it's more the system that's got to change. It's not Doug Kelley. It's not these judges. It's not the Justice Department. Or the people involved. It's really the system that creates this, and I think that you know, everybody has to kind of look inward. And at the end of the day, every one of these people is appointed in some way by elected official, and I do think at the end of the day there's an opportunity to change the minds, I guess, of the elected official to make this a better system.
How will you disseminate this, Bill?
We're still in process of working out distribution deals, nothing yet to report.
We're getting kicked out of here, but I'd like to thank the Uptown Theater. I'd like to thank
I thought it was wonderful and very revealing as to the injustices that the government is perpetrating.
Do you think that this is a production that's worthy of the networks?
Yeah, but I don't think they want to deal with it because they don't like to deal with the truth.
One of the last or next to the last question that was asked was, what's wrong with Minnesota? Are we corrupt? Well, I'm not going to label a state as corrupt, but I would say instead of corruption, I would use the word comfort. The prosecutors and the judges and the attorneys and the accountants were all too comfortable making deals with each other and for each other.
But that was against
so
the
that
law.
Justice does not get
Conflict
served.
of interest was involved. That's against the law. Appearance of impropriety, well, that's against the rules. I don't know if it's against the law. It's against the.
Yes, but I believe they were. I believe all kinds of judicial or legal ethics were violated. Whether it's illegal, whether they could be found guilty in a court of law, I don't know.
Okay, you don't have to answer this question. Do you think that Judge Montgomery should get off scot-free?
I believe Judge Montgomery should recuse herself from this matter.
Any opinion?
Well, I'm just Joe Citizen, but I would say that what's alarming is the fact that even if an appeal somewhere down the road comes back and says, hey, you guys made a mistake, at that point it's moot because everything's gone.
Because the assets were depleted.
So yes. Something needs to be done up front.
Well, the government got the assets with this forfeiture thing, so why can't we get it back from the government?
You know, I'd be curious to know, here's a question. Do you think that when Kelley was in there with a dozen attorneys, that somebody from the creditor's side should have said, listen, we need to arm up and bring in a number of attorneys? Could there have been a check and balance here
I hadn't thought of that. The creditors thought that they had their guy, Billy Procida, in there, and,
Right.
and he's a pretty tough guy. And
But he's only one guy.
And he's one guy. He wasn't anticipating that.
And he brought
wasn't-
in a local Minnesota attorney,
And
but
he
he
wasn't-
maybe brought in the wrong firm or the wrong.
I can't speak to
Yeah,
that.
I don't know who that person was.
Last question, right? Judge Montgomery allowed Doug Kelley to become receiver. Now, we've heard in the Star, just recently, Doug Kelley admits wrongdoing before he became receiver. So, don't you think that there's something terribly wrong that disciplinary action should be taken upon a judge who puts I mean, she obviously knew that Doug Kelley was trouble. That's why she gave him immunity. Why? I mean, she gave him immunity.
In that ex parte proceeding, in that magic weekend,
that was
that
illegal.
when the prosecutors and Petter's attorney got together to decide that Petter's attorney would be the receiver,
Right.
because it was secret and off the record, we don't know what was represented
However,
to Judge
the
Montgomery.
authorizes
We don't
it.
know whether
The
she was
judge
told.
authorizes it. Everybody can cackle behind the doors, but the judge authorized that receivership.
Right, and
She
if she
takes-
did, if she
she
did
takes-
something wrong, there is a process by
isn't-
which you can bring a judge
It isn't
under
on the
But
scrutiny.
they don't work, do they? I mean, where has the process
I
ever
don't-
worked anywhere in the United States?
It isn't on the record that the judge was told that there was a receiver in place and that there were TROs freezing the assets. We don't know whether she was told that. It isn't on the record. She was later asked in a hearing. She did not answer. So if she did not know that there was already a receiver in place, at least she has that excuse.
Now there's another hearing. Let's pretend that Minnesota actually could execute a citizen's grand jury, and she's there, on stand now as a witness, and now she's asked. What do you think that would have maybe an effect? You know,
She says she would say.
will there be a proceeding when we'll find out the truth?
Right.
I'm not optimistic about that. I'm not. Who
Well, you would have to answer
has
them
even
truthfully.
called? Has any congressman or senator even called for hearings on what's happened here? There's no. Who's standing up for victims' rights?
Well, I know
Nobody's
that
standing up for victims.
senators and representatives have been asked by victims to have the hearings, and also that the House Judiciary Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee were asked to have hearings, and of course, nothing's happened.
Do you mean the Minnesota House and Senate?
No, I'm talking federal.
I wasn't aware of that.
Well, let me just add this. Whatever Montgomery is making today, if she admits fault or if she leaves the judgeship, she will make far more in private practice. So there is no harm, as our Chief Justice will now experience. Chief Justice Eric Magnuson has stepped down from the Supreme Court. He will make far more than he made as our Chief Justice.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.